Welcome to the Abundant Accountant Podcast. This is where accounting professionals come to learn the most efficient and powerful ways to grow their accounting firms, sharpen their sales skills, and really have a path to creating consistent increased revenue. I cover topics from networking, pricing, ideal clients, how to handle objections, how to handle you're too expensive, and how to set boundaries with clients so you can stop giving away your time and expertise away for free and really start getting paid your value and your worth. You'll learn tips and strategies and also hear personal interviews from successful accounting professionals and others in the industry. This podcast will show you exactly how to create the firm and life of your dreams full of abundance. Welcome to the Abundant Accountant Podcast. Today, our special guest is Michael King, who's the CEO of KFE Solutions, which is a top-rated fractional CFO firm in Dallas, Texas. He's also the creator of The Connected Accountant, which is the community coaching resources for bookkeepers, accountants, and fractional CFO service professionals. He spent 11 years in the U.S. Navy supervising nuclear reactors on submarines. Wow, that's really cool. And then he transitioned into the world of business. He's passionate about helping business owners understand their numbers so they can make better decisions. And he's also extremely passionate about cash flow projections, which you're going to hear today. But today we have a very special topic. Why getting paid up front versus pay as you go is so important, and which is the best for CPA firms. And that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we dive in today, I would like to know that if your accounting practice isn't where you want it to be, I get it. So many of the accounting clients that I work with are frustrated or stuck, especially as it relates to their AR and getting paid up front, which we're talking about today. But what we found is that they're typically not even charging enough what they're worth, and you don't have a solid system in place to attract those high, consistent paying clients. So if that's you, I am offering a complimentary coaching session to dive more into what's stopping you. And if you want to build your firm, feel confident in offering high-level services while getting paid up front with ease and never having to chase down a client again, then I invite you to head on over to theabundantcall.com and book the first slot you see with myself or one of my teammates. And this is really what's going to transform your life, so you can sell higher services, have more free time to spend at home with your family, and go on that long overdue vacation that you've probably been dreaming of the last couple years. So once again, if you're willing to open up the curtains, get to the truth of really what's holding your accounting firm back from where you want it to be, then head on over to theabundantcall.com and book the first slot you see. Now, let's welcome Michael to the show. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Michelle, thank you so much for having me. This is exciting.
Yes, I am very excited to have you here because we are talking about a topic that a lot of accounting professionals think I'm absolutely crazy when I tell them they can grow a firm to 6 and 7 figures and beyond with no accounts receivable. And they're like, no way, Michelle, there's no way. I can't fathom not having to chase a client down for an invoice or send out a proposal and hope they pay for it, or let alone do some work, send them an invoice 6 months later, and then maybe collect on it a year later. And I'm like, yep, all that can change. So I'm very excited to have you here, Michael, to talk about this very important topic today. Why getting paid up front versus pay as you go or pay a year later is not really a good plan. So welcome to the show. And if you could share with everyone, I know you have a CFO fractional firm. You're in Dallas. You have a community for accountants, CFO services, and bookkeepers. But real quick, in under a minute, could you just share who you are and what you do? Because I've already done it, but now you get to share it in your words.
I was going to say, I don't know that there's anything left to say. Those were all of the super
great.
critical things.
Well, we can just dive right into today. No, I'm just kidding. I'm sure you have something.
No, yeah. Super excited to be here. And just like you said, my name is Michael King, and I'm the founder of KFE Solutions. We're a fractional CFO firm, and we work primarily with professional services businesses that are 3 to 35 million in revenue. And I also have a community of bookkeepers, accountants, and fractional CFOs that I kind of help with things like this. Topics like how do you run a 6 or 7 figure firm with no AR? But yeah, it's been a very interesting journey over the last 6 years of doing this. But spoiler alert, just like you said, I am here to tell you, as living, breathing proof, and I've been doing this for years. We haven't had a penny of AR in 3.5 years now.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I'm super excited to have you here, share your wisdom and your knowledge, because, this is an important topic. It's one that I talk about a lot, and a lot of accountants think I'm absolutely nuts, that you can grow a 6 to 7 figure firm and never have to discount your fees just to get clients. But more importantly, the topic we're talking about today, never have to send out a proposal and wait for the work or wait for the money to come in, I should say, and how they can increase their firm revenue and not have to chase clients. Because last time I checked, Michael, and every accountant I've worked with, I asked them, do you get paid to be a bill collector? Do you get paid interest on your bad debt? Do you get paid if the money is out 1 year and you continue to do work for a client and you still haven't gotten paid? They're like, no, Michelle, I don't get any money for that. I'm like, okay, good. Glad we're on the same page.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, the journey to get here wasn't an obvious one, and there are some tips and tricks and best practices that I'm super excited to share with your audience today to kind of help them in that journey. So we're going to go a little deeper than, hey, look at me. Yes, this is possible. We're going to get into the weeds and really talk about some tactical things that you can do to make this a reality in your firm.
All right. How many tactical things are we going to promise them today, just to make sure they have their yellow notepads out, you got a pen, and you're paying attention?
There's always 3.
All right, cool.
There's always at least 3. So if you ever hear me talk, you're going to come away with at least 3 things to do. So get ready for at least 3. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, let's do it. So why don't you share how you got to the point where you have 0 AR, you have a 7-figure firm, you did this all with making sure you got paid up front, payment in advance, and never had to send out an invoice or a proposal or anything unless it was just a 0 balance one for a paper trail. And share that story that really had you shift to where you're at today.
Absolutely. And just real quick before I get into that, I do want to say that I'm super excited and humbled to be here today. And as somebody that coaches dozens of bookkeepers, accountants, and fractional CFOs, and somebody that serves as a fractional CFO and coach for hundreds now of businesses, I can tell you, Michelle, hands down, this time we're in right now is an absolutely amazing time to be in the game of owning a bookkeeping or an accounting or fractional CFO firm. There's literally just so many businesses starting up right now and doing amazing things. But the truth is they desperately need the kind of help that you and I and the audience here can provide. The other reality is I think the old school model of some of the more traditional brick and mortar accounting firms is really kind of, it's not working as well as it used to. People want to work with progressive online digital firms, and the truth is they're willing to pay for it and they're willing to pay up front for it. But as I think through that, it's like, despite all of this, I bet that some of the people listening have had some challenges, like we kind of alluded to, where you're struggling to justify the hours that you bill to a client. That they see the invoice and they're trying to pick it apart, or sometimes it can feel like clients are price shopping all the time. And I think the worst is when you send an invoice and the client just sits on it and doesn't do anything with it.
Right. And that happens the most, because then you just have to chase the client down for a payment, and your receivables grow instead of stay at 0 like you. So I guess my question for you, Michael, is what was the story and what'd your receivables get to in your past life to say, oh, this is how I shift. This is why I needed to make a shift. And then we'll go into your 3 tactical changes that those of you who are here today, grab your notebook, grab your pen, and pay attention, because I preach this all the time. But now we have a special guest who's also probably going to validate everything I've shared. So hopefully, this is going to be some great actionable steps for you to implement today. Why wait? There's no better time than the present. And get this year to zero and stay at zero. So you never have AR again. So share with us, Michael, what happened to you? What was that turning moment for you?
So the moment came about 3.5 years ago. Like I said earlier, I think I've had the company for 6 years now. And kind of those struggles we talked about earlier was pretty much a monthly occurrence for me. One or two or all three of those things were kind of happening all of the time. And honestly, I just got to the point that I'd had enough. Yeah, I felt like my clients weren't valuing my time and my team's time. They weren't valuing the expertise that we brought to the table. And we were doing a lot of work that we never really signed up for. Scope creep kind of crept in. And then after all of that, now I got to go fight you to pay the invoice, right? And so literally 3.5 years ago now, I came to work one day and there was just an entire story over the weekend with a client that was calling and texting me over the weekend at night and the whole 9 yards. Get to work on Monday morning, and what do I have in my inbox but an email from him complaining about the invoice, asking me, hey, you billed for 42.5 hours. It seems like 38 is what it should have been or something like that. And I reached out to my team and I said, look, guys, I don't think any of us are fulfilled by this and waiting to get paid and dealing with all this. I want to fire all of our clients and do a complete reboot. Do you trust me to rebuild the practice from the ground up? And if you trust me, I'm going to build it in a way that we don't deal with this stuff anymore. And I was like, yes, let's do it. And so I fired everybody that day.
Wow.
Except for I kept one client, but I fired the rest. And I said, I'm going to sit down now and I'm going to brainstorm on a dry erase board. How did I get here? And how do I get to the point that we never get into this reality again? And so, I know everybody's kind of waiting for the tacticals now, but I think it's important to set that background up. What I found through that whiteboarding experience that took me 3 days is, number one, we needed to move away from hourly invoicing and move into a fixed price model. But I didn't want to move into just any fixed price model. I wanted to move into a recurring revenue model that was based on a very defined and clear scope of work. And, that way it solves a couple problems. Number one, you have predictable revenue, you have predictable workloads, yep. And our clients know exactly what they're going to be billed and what to expect. Make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, and I think that really, from everything that I talk about, the front end process, that creates the client experience. There's no surprise. People like me don't want to get an invoice later on for all these things that I had no idea you were going to charge me for. That's not that fun. And I'd like you to share, Michael, because I know someone here is thinking, well, Michelle, what if it takes me longer than the estimate that I charge in advance for? And then, it took me double the amount of time and I need to send another invoice because I didn't estimate it properly. So I'd like to have you answer that at some point today, as what's your best practices for that?
Sure. And let's definitely talk about that, because I think that's really kind of a core competency that you need to master for all this kind of to work. But you're right, as accounting professionals, financial professionals, one of the things that my team and I preach is a lot to our clients is cash flows and cash flow forecasting. And so that becomes really hard when there's hourly bills coming in and the clients don't have a clue what to expect for it. So you're kind of helping them in a number of ways by coming up with that fixed scope and that fixed pricing model. So, but yeah, just like you said, I found that when we move to that model, it's a lot easier for us. It's a lot easier for our clients. It's a lot easier for us to figure out how to scale because we know what our time commitments are. We know what our scope is. And we start to kind of get some efficiencies and things like that internally, which makes the wheel go roundy a lot smoother for everybody. And honestly, the level of anxiety, stress, and drama goes to something like zero when you get to this point, both for you and for the client. And I'll tell you that since we've moved to this model, we have a churn rate of almost zero now for about 3.5 years. Clients just don't leave us. It's such a good experience that they stay with us and never go. And Michelle, I'll also share with you, we have clients that pay us now $7,000 a month for our services, and they pay us in advance. every single month. And I don't say that to sound braggadocious, but I just want to share with you, it is possible to get any level of client paying a fixed price and paying in advance. So how do you kind of get there, right?
Okay.
How do you get there?
So tactical thing number one.
Yeah. Step one, brainstorm what you want your package to be.
Yep.
Okay. And this is such an important thing. Like, you've got to just kind of sit down. I love using a dry erase board, but be super, super deliberate about it. Say, what kind of work is it that fills me and my team? What do we enjoy doing? Is it bookkeeping? Is it tax prep? Is it tax strategy? Is it CFO, fractional CFO work? But really think down and think through like exactly what you want the scope to be, and then go deeper. So let's say that you're an accountant and you do bookkeeping. How often are you doing transaction allocations? How often are you doing reconciliations? How often are you delivering financial statements? Are you having monthly calls or quarterly calls? Like, you really need to think through all of the tactical deliverables that you're going to offer and start really thinking through step by step, how long does this take? That's where you're going to solve that problem that you mentioned earlier, Michelle, of, what if I thought that it was going to take me 20 hours, but now it's 40 hours and I've got, do I send this invoice for the extra time? The magic in this is in the upfront work. And let me tell you this, when you first get in the game, you're going to be wrong, right? It's just part of the tuition that you're going to pay is you're going to be wrong. And you're going to be like, oh, snap. I totally forgot that, we need to do cash flow forecasting as well. I didn't include that in my time estimate. And this is what I will tell you. That's your tuition to eat, not your clients. Yeah. When in my opinion, if you're going to do a fixed scope of work, if you're going to come up with a fixed price for that and you underestimate how long it's going to take, you probably just need to eat that. Because if you told your client, hey, I'm going to do this for $1,000 a month, and then you come to them several weeks later and say, hey, I goofed, it's really $1,300 a month, it's going to destroy that level of trust. And the entire foundation of why this process works kind of gets ripped out from underneath.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Makes sense. So
okay.
Share with us the time where you had to pay your tuition and you screwed up. That first time where, you put your package together, you did your first tactical step and you met with the client. They're paying you whatever your new package fee is per month, you guessed.
Yep.
And then you realized that you were, completely short.
Yeah, and that was the reason I use cash flow forecasting as an example, is because that's the thing that got me. We really preach the importance to clients of having cash flow forecasts and understanding cash flow needs. And I grossly miscalculated how long it was going to take for this. It was, of course, the first client, how long it was going to take to do this month in and month out, because they have a fairly unpredictable cash flow setup. And so, we're a month into this thing, and I had kind of estimated like 2 or 2.5 hours a month. And it was a lot more like 5 hours a month or 6 hours a month. And so I have somebody on my team named Carlos, and he's looking at me like, what the heck did you sign us up for? And I said, well, we've got to figure out a way to make up for this somewhere else, or how do we get, the client to be a little less needy as far as cash flows go. But yeah, that came out of my pocket. I had to pay my team for the work that they were doing. And so that came out of my pocket, but I'm not the smartest guy, but I don't make mistakes twice, the same mistake twice very often.
What did that mistake cost you? What was your investment in your tuition fund for that mistake?
It was probably $500 a month or something like that, all in on it. But more important than that is, it was the impact that it had on my team. As I said, as we were talking about, I said, hey, look, your time requirement for this client is going to be a lot like this. And they built their day, their week, their month around those assumptions. And now I'm like, this is probably going to take 50 to 75% longer than you thought. I need you to go back and reconfigure your life. And so they weren't super, super happy about that. So it was less to me about the money, and more about, the impact that it had on my team, but, it not at the cost of the client. We made sure that the client had a seamless experience and they got the value that they had paid for. Got it.
Okay. What's the second tactical tip and, step?
Sure. So step 2 is I want you to think out, what do you want your effective hourly rate to be? is this is where the kind of the balance starts to come in. Is we want to charge our clients a rate that is kind of in congruence with what we think our value is. And so as you map out all the steps and you figure out the hour, then you say, okay, well, what do I want my hourly rate to be? Do I want my hourly rate to be $50 an hour? Do I want it to be 100? Do I want it to be 500? There's really no wrong answer here, but just think through for you, what do you want your hourly rate to be? What is your time worth to you? And then I want you to take that and multiply it, right, by the hours that you think that particular scope of work is going to take, right? And this gives you kind of the first, I'm going to give you kind of like 3 different ways to think through pricing these packages. This is the first component of the 3 on how to price is what does the package need to cost so that you get that effective hourly rate that you're looking for. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. But you also have to guess accurately how long you think it will take you on a monthly basis. So you were $500 short and put your team in a predicament with, your tuition into your mistake schooling. And I think, I take these things, Michael, and I teach it. I'm not an accountant. I just work with a lot. And I could probably run a firm, no problem. Do the work, that's a whole different story. But I have a lot of smart friends and clients. It's like, have you ever built a house or built built out a retail space or did any sort of construction? Have you ever done anything like that? Okay. Now, I always say if they tell me it's going to take 3 months, I just take it times 2 and know it's going to take 6 months. If someone says it's going to be done in 2 weeks, I just say, okay, that means 4 weeks. If they think the project, I built out a retail store. I had a business called Fitzy Foods Meal Prep. We ship meals nationwide. You name all of them. Everything came out either twice as long or twice as expensive. The build out, $100,000. And at the end of the build out, it was $200,000. They said 3 months. It took 6 months. And I think if you just estimate, okay, well, I think this client, it'll be about 20 hours per month. All right. Well, why not just say that you might spend 40 hours, and if you get it done in 20, you just increased your profitability by whatever percent that is. Or if you estimate, double that and you get the work done in 15 hours, then kudos to you because your team and your staff are becoming more efficient. So it makes sense that you need to be able to figure out what you want your effective hourly rate to be, but you also have to think about how long it could possibly take you in a worst case scenario.
Yeah, and I love that idea. And my wife will tell you, she'll be the first one to say that I am the world's worst at estimating how long anything is going to take. So if she's, how long are you going to golf for today? I'll be gone 2 hours. She knows it's probably going to be 4 hours, right? So I'm right there with you. But the figuring out the effective hourly rate thing is just one component of how I would go about the pricing strategy. And you're right. If you want to build in some 25%, 50%, 100% of kind of wiggle room, then that's great. Okay. There's definitely nothing wrong with that. The challenge starts to become though, when you're going on a fixed price model, that if let's say that you built in that 100% buffer, right, where you've doubled the number of hours, you can quickly get to a point where you've priced yourself out of work.
Yeah,
right?
Of course.
And so, and that's why like step 2 on the pricing. So step 1 is figure out, effective hourly rate multiplied by the number of hours. Step 2 is I say, look, go out and do some market research and figure out roughly how much if your client or your lead were to go out and shop it in the open market, what is the next guy or gal down the road going to be quoting approximately for this? And you don't have to go out and get quotes, but I think that if you've been in business longer than 6 months, you have a rough idea of kind of what the going rate is for the project. And so, or that particular scope of work. So it's kind of just this balancing act between, all right, what is my effective hourly rate times the amount that I want to, or the number of hours I think it's going to take, versus what is the market rate. And then the third part that you've got to balance in there, and I think this is the one that we lose sight of a lot of times in this profession, is what is the value proposition to the client of the work that we're doing. And what I mean by that is, let's say that you have a client that I love cash flows. It's my literal favorite thing to talk about in the world. Let's say that you've got a client that is just maxed out with stress and fear and anxiety over cash flows. They're worried every single payday if they've got enough cash in the bank. It seems like they've never got any money to reinvest in the business. And so if you come in as their new fractional CFO or their new accountant and you're going to help them with cash flows, there's a ton of value to the work that you're going to do for them. It can be a literal game changer for them. If you're going to come in and do a tax strategy package, and you know that maybe this is a multiple 8-figure business, that a tax strategy package could save them $100,000 plus a year, then there's probably $20,000 to $30,000 of value in that for the client. And so the three components of this pricing is your effective hourly rate, the market, the kind of going market rate, and then what the value proposition is to the client. And at that point, it kind of becomes this art rather than a science, where you're kind of blending all three of those together and taking all three of those into consideration. And that's how we've found the most effective way is to come up with our fixed pricing. Does that make sense?
I think that's a great exercise for everyone to go through. And then you implement it and you see what works. And you get paid up front. You don't send them a bill. You ask for payment on the spot, and you get their credit card, or you get an ACH form ready to go and filled out, and then you're on your way.
That's exactly what we do because we know what our scope of work is. And we literally only offer 3 packages. We have our CFO core package, our advanced package, and our executive package. And we're really good now because we know who our ideal client is. We know who we will and won't work with. We're really good at knowing, like, upfront how long the work's going to take. We've just been perfecting it for 3.5 years now. But I'll get on a sales call, Michelle, and do some discovery, asking them questions about them and their challenges, et cetera. I get into my pitch, and I'm really good at selling them on the transformation, the emotional side of it. I back it up with the tactical bookkeeping, accounting, tax strategy, whatever work we're going to do. And I say, look, in order for you to get this, the price is $7,000 a month. And the way that we work is, I'll send you over the contract. You'll sign it. Part of that contract process, you put your payment in, and we collect that money upfront at the beginning of the month, and we're off to the races. Now, this is normally the kickback or the pushback that I hear from people when I tell them that, is they say, well, people are never going to do that. Right?
Yeah, Michael. I hear that all the time. Michelle, no one's ever going to pay me up front for my services. I'm like, okay, well, I've helped 100 accountants change their whole business to get paid up front and collect every dollar owed to them. Like, I had one client, Amani, she had over 40,000 in AR, all collected. I have 2 people right now in one of my classes, Jack and Lynn, started at 27,000. They have 1 client left to pay him $310. Every single penny due to you will get collected. But then this is the next step so that the cycle can be broken, because we don't want to chase clients down. We're not getting paid for that time. And it's just a horrible client experience from the sales side of things.
It is. And I'll tell you, there's 2 big things that are going to keep you from being successful with this, I think, or 2 kind of considerations. Number one, the number one hurdle you're going to have by far into getting your clients onto a pay up front model is you. You are telling yourself this story on behalf of your clients of what they will and won't do. You're telling yourself this story because that's the way it's always been done. But I'm telling you, the game is changing. Clients are expecting it because guess what? A lot of your clients are collecting money up front from their people. I put it very similar to people that charge credit card processing fees. There's so many people now that are charging their clients 3 or 3.5% if they pay with credit cards, right? Mm-hmm. Everyone's just kind of doing that now. And a lot of people are collecting up front. And so like I said, the number one hurdle is the story that you're telling yourself that what your clients will and won't do. Okay. The second thing, this is something that comes into play, I would say about 20% of the time on my sales calls. I'll get a little bit of resistance sometimes on a sales call. Like, Mike, it's expensive. Just, I don't know you, and to pay you $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 up front, it's a little risky. What we do at KFE is we don't do contracts. I mean, we have a month-to-month contract, but there's no long-term contracts. And I tell people, look, let's start. If at the end of the month you don't think that we delivered, if you don't think you got the value that I'm selling you right now, then you can cancel and walk away, no harm, no foul. And I'll also make you this guarantee. At the end of the month, if you don't think that we delivered that month, I'll refund your monthly fee for the month. Mm-hmm. And I've put it out there on the line for 3.5 years. And guess what? We have never had one refund request, but it pushes that 20% of people over the line. And the other thing that I found that it does, Michelle, is it keeps me and my team hungry. Yeah. It keeps us from being complacent. And we are always super dedicated and kind of all in on doing anything we can to find value for our clients and to add value for our clients. Because we know that if we don't, there's a chance that they might ask for that refund. And my team is paid off of revenue, not off of an hourly rate or a salary. I pay my team as a percentage of revenue. And so they all know that they've got skin in the game. And so we have some really good conversations internally about what can we do to add value for our clients and what other things can we be considering for them. So yeah, the two big hurdles are just the story you're telling yourself. And number two is you may get that pushback. And so I would encourage you to really think, is there a 30-day money back guarantee that you can offer just for that small percentage of people that are going to push back?
Yeah, no, I love that. I'm in alignment with everything you've said so far, Michael. So I want to be honorable of our time today and everyone's listening. And I know you said you had one other tactical step for us. So I'd love to hear what that third tactical step is that you would like to share with the listeners today on how, they can really tie this up with a nice bow on getting paid up front and putting an end to their AR, never having to chase down a client again, and never having to send out a proposal or an invoice and wonder what happened to that client. They disappeared on me. They ghosted me. And it really eliminates probably 5 other things, but we won't get into that today. What's that third last tactical tip that you have?
Get in the game. Just get in the game. And what I found the best way to do that is I have no skin in the game on this. I love Practice Ignition because inside of Practice Ignition, I have the contract and I can put right in there when I send the contract to require payment up front. So the client gets it, they put their payment in, and then they sign the contract. And now it's behind me. I don't have to deal with it anymore. And then every month on the first of the month, they get billed in advance for that month that we're about to start work with. So really just to kind of push yourself over the edge, take a look at something like Practice Ignition where you have that option, right in your contract, all right, for the payment, right? And it integrates great with QuickBooks and Xero and all the things. Just get in the game, try it out and get on that next sales call and just do it. Just get in the game and just, hey, this is how we do it. Here's the contract and you're off to the races. Yeah. Don't overplan it. Don't overthink it beyond the brainstorming where you're thinking about all the requirements and everything like that. That's all super important. But once you've figured it out and hey, this is my $1,500 a month package, just get in the game.
Yeah, it's I always say that, just get in the game, or words I've said is just start, because you don't know what's possible until you see. And there's a 50-50 chance that this might work. Has it worked for people like Michael and others I've seen? 100%. And the only way to see that it's going to work for you is just to try. Because if you don't try, then it's 100% never going to work. But if you try, you have a 50-50 chance that your clients and your future clients are going to be 100% on board. So thank you so much, Michael, for joining us here on the Abundant Accountant Podcast. It was an honor to have you here and taking out the time to share this. It was great knowledge and great wisdom, and hopefully you all took a lot of notes. But as we always say, it's time to get into action. So thanks again for being here with us.